Hey everyone, what's going on? I'm here with a very special guest today. Bradley Rubin of Alec Bradley Cigars is in Canada joining us. We have a lot to talk about, particularly the new release of Safekeepings launching in Canada, finally. First and foremost, Bradley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's get some history going for the brand. It was established in 1996.
That's correct.
And that was kind of at like the tailor end of the cigar boom of the 90s, you could say, right?
Yeah, so the boom happened in like the late 80s, early 90s. So, a lot of companies were established because of the boom. A lot of people trying to get in and, capitalize on, an exciting market. And so I think at the time, like companies like Rocky Patel and Drew Estate and some other very notable
Yeah,
brands had been started and are still around today.
yeah,
So my father, Alan Rubin, didn't really get a chance to like have any of that quick success from the
sure.
boom and kind of had his struggles from very, very early on.
Sure. And your father, Alan, came from the hardware business, right?
Yeah.
From
So
importing hardware, transitioning to cigars. How does that usually happen? Because usually when you hear the majority of, not the majority, but a good handful will have like generational history with the fields, but your dad wasn't like that. So you want to elaborate?
yeah, yeah. So he worked for my grandfather, and they did like nuts and bolts and screws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my grandfather kind of had an accident. He like fell off like a ladder roof and kind of hit his head and was never like he wasn't just fully there capable of running the business anymore. So my father took over and eventually sold that business. And when trying to figure out what he wanted to do, everyone said like he loved smoking cigars and he would always be driving to work smoking a cigar. And that's where he kind of found his passion was and what he wanted to try and do. But was as they say, a gringo in the industry, no Hispanic background,
Yeah.
no ties to people that, any sort of heritage towards cigars or anything like that. So it was basically going in blind and, you know, had probably struggled for about 5+ years before he even really had anything to kind of call a success. So, multiple brands that just kind of went down the drain and, were failures for him. But ultimately, I think what led to his future success.
Absolutely. And, establishing the brand Alec Bradley after the market's kind of been saturated with all these new brands after the boom, yet still succeeding in the midst of all that saturation, there must have been something unique in terms of what the brand had to offer. What would you say, in your opinion, that would have been?
For my old man, like his whole thing was always about creating value for customers. He wanted to make sure that if he's, selling an $8 cigar, that people will be willing to pay 10 or 12. So always making sure that there's always that value added when buying any of our cigars. And, my dad always talks about that he wishes he started at a higher price cigar and, could come back down and
Work its way
not
down.
start at a lower price. So like his first success was a brand called Occidental Reserve.
Oh, wow.
And Occidental was a bundled cigar that was made at Davidoff.
Yeah,
And that kind of just took off for him. And that's what really kept us afloat for like many years. And then from that allowed him to kind of be a little bit more creative with like a brand called Trilogy, which
sure.
was like the first ever triangle press cigar that he went into Home Depot and made the molds himself for the first time and created something that no one has created before.
Yeah.
And then a brand that we still make today called Max, which at the
Oh, yeah.
time was one of the first kind of big ring gauge brands.
Yeah.
And when he first offered it, every size was sold for $5. So it
Wow.
didn't matter if it
Even the
was
Super Freak?
even the Super Freak. It was like basically an A size. It was like
Wow.
48 by 9 1/4, I believe.
Yeah.
All sold for $5, down to the kind of petite Corona size that he had as well. So I think just trying to be creative in a industry that we only do one thing. Like
Yeah.
we're like you guys have a place that you only sell really one. It's all different things of the same exact thing. So
Yeah.
trying to distinguish yourself in an industry that's
Yes.
so simple
Yeah.
is really, really tough to do.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys had clear innovations like the triangle press and the different sizes. I've noticed like you guys were one of the earlier brands to come out with like that chunk size.
Yeah.
And people have been still loving that till this day. I mean, I remember growing up, my brother and I started selling cigars for we've been doing it for half our lives. I started at like 16. I'm not sure
Wow.
if I should say that on camera, but I would help out, and then
Yeah.
slowly work our way into it. And Alec Bradley as a brand just holds such a sentimental place in my heart for in terms of cigars
Mhm.
because growing up I watched the brand portfolio just expand line after line after line, and it's become synonymous with a lot of retail shops. You can't not have Alec Bradley cigars in your humidor. But you grew up into the business after
Mhm.
your dad had a great success and all that. Did you ever feel any pressure with your name on the company name?
I mean, pressure to get in or just pressure in general?
Like eventually you started blending you and your brother Alec and all
Yeah,
that stuff. And now, with the success of like let's say Prensado,
yeah,
Cigar of the Year, and a bunch of other lines, Tempest did really well too.
yeah,
You guys now are coming into the scene, I think around 2016 to 2018,
yeah,
and you made your own sub brand, you could say.
sure.
But now you guys have to live up to a certain standard, you feel like, or how did you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about like at the end of the day, just and you work with your family, like making your family proud,
Yeah,
and like always making sure that you try your best and that you present yourself well to the outside. But then also, yeah, I mean, we have our father who, and he would never want me to say this, but what I believe is a legend in the industry,
without a doubt.
and so there is something to live up to and shoes to fill, and I think it's I forget like the line, but someone says like basically like it's like a blessing to be able to have pressure. Like
Sure.
like I'm
That
very
air.
I'm very lucky that there's something that I can aspire to, and then there's pressure on me to live up to my old man's accomplishments. So I think that we've done an okay job and put out some good brands that have gotten a lot of legs, and I think there's a mix between sometimes what's considered a because we also look at the business side of things as well, obviously, and that's brands that sell very well,
Yeah,
and then also brands that the blends are known for just being a good blend. Sometimes there's mass market blends that
yeah.
sell well for certain reasons. So I think we've had some brands like Gatekeeper getting #7 cigar of the year back in 2020, and then the sales to live up to the blend
It's exceptional.
was exciting for me and Alec.
Yeah, and obviously you and your brother Alec are approaching it hand in hand when you develop the new blends. Do you ever have any like sibling rivalries? Who gets the final say in terms of like what goes onto the market, or you want to push something and he wants to push something else? How does that work?
Yeah, a little bit. Like we came up with Kintsugi, like we were working on Kintsugi before COVID started. And so we kind of had this whole other direction for like we had the cigar done, but the packaging. And so we kind of just like went down this rabbit hole and my father kind of came to me and was like, and I usually kind of handle more of the packaging. My father was like, Bradley, like I don't think the packaging is kind of like up to par of like what the brand should be. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, we should change it. So then I had to tell Alec, hey, we're gonna change it, and which would probably set us back another 6 months or so. And
Sure.
he's like, no, like, cigars are selling right now. Like COVID,
Yeah,
like everyone's selling cigars, it's going crazy. Like we gotta strike now. And I'm like, the sales will still be there. Like we just gotta make sure we do this right. We pushed it back. Kintsugi to me is my favorite cigar that we make in totality. And I think it was best for the brand. Do I know that Alec maybe feels differently? I don't know how he feels about that, but
sure.
like we argue quite a bit, and I think I'm more of the hard-headed one that like if I want something to be a certain way, I usually fight for my position as long as possible. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a little bit of rivalry on who gets to make the final decision at the end.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, that kind of quality and trait, when certain brands exhibit that kind of patience and waiting to drop something only when it's ready, it's kind of one of the many reasons why your company has had such a like a longevity. It's been sustainable. It's been consistent with the blends. Like Prensado's #1 cigar of the year, absolutely timeless. And I say that because people focus on, in 2011 it took home #1, but more than 10 years later, Prensado's still grabbing top 10 awards as recently as 2023. I think
Yeah.
it was #8 or something.
Hmm.
And that consistency is obviously a huge factor of that success. And then how do you guys build off of that when you guys approach, let's say, like the first one you guys made, what was it, the Kintsugi
Yeah.
or
The Blind Faith was the first
Blind Faith?
cigar
Yeah.
that me and Alec made together, and then was Gatekeeper, and then Kintsugi.
Double Broadleaf came towards the end still.
Yeah, that was about maybe 3 years ago. We created Double Broadleaf.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's really just about seeing where there's gaps in the portfolio, and like I think again, their passion and business have to kind of balance, and we look at things still from a business standpoint in terms of like, hey, what are we going to release, or why are we going to release it? For Alec Bradley, we create we like having stories around our brands,
Yeah.
as to why they're made, or maybe the story that we're trying to tell, like Kintsugi, or Gatekeeper and things like that. But we don't have a lot of tobacco focused brands.
Yeah.
And or broadleaf wasn't a type of tobacco we had in our portfolio, and we see the success of Liga Privada, or maybe Tabernacle from Foundation,
Yeah.
or whatever it may be. And I personally like those cigars, so I'm
Of
like, I
course.
want to smoke them, but I want to smoke my own.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't I don't mind buying cigars, but I want the free version from my own brand. And
Fair enough. Yeah.
so we created Double Broadleaf, and that kind of also, like, the reason for that was, or at least the name was, we we're working on blends, and
Yeah.
we were using broadleaf wrapper, but I was like, it doesn't taste enough like broadleaf.
Yeah.
And so, still learning about tobacco, I'm like, can we also use this as like a binder as well? And then that way, we can get more of that flavor. And I was told yes. And so it's a broadleaf wrapper and binder. And
Yeah, and the
um,
market sentiment was really approaching. I mean, at the time that dropped, it was kind of leaning towards like that more full flavor, full throttle cigars, San
yeah,
Andreas wrappers, broadleaf wrappers, and whatnot.
sure.
And Double Broadleaf came out, and it was a huge success in the shop here too.
That's great.
And I want to kind of use that to transition to the new release that we are announcing today. This is the Alec Bradley Safekeeping, developed by Alec and Bradley. By the way, people still think Alec Bradley is one person. Whenever sometimes people walk in here, it's Alec and Bradley. And the Safekeeping's a Nicaraguan Puro, one of the more unique, interesting cigars. I remember when my brother smoked it before me, and he was going over some of the notes he picked up, and he said honey. And that is not something I usually get with the New World cigars, in all transparency.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of know like how realistic that would have been. And let me tell you, like it really kind of caught me off guard. This definitely has a unique twist on that. A lot of, earthy undertones. I felt like some cinnamon in there, some honey in there, complex transitions of flavor. What a phenomenal blend. Tell us a story about how you approach this.
Yeah, so it actually it kind of came pretty easy, in a weird way. So, like, the reason for the name Safekeepings was after we sold Alec Bradley about 2.5 years ago, and we were kind of going through the office. We were trying to clean up old boxes from upstairs. We found, old ashtrays my father made back in the early 2000s, and this and that, and old print bands and test prints of stuff, and eventually kind of made his way to his safe, in his office, and which held a lot of his old blend books from years past, which, like, had blends that he did use that ended up being like Prensado and Tempest and Black Market,
Yeah.
but then also brands that, or blends that never came to the market. So my idea was for us to use a blend that never came to market and remake it now and put it out.
Yeah.
So, and some of those blends, like, we couldn't use, the tobaccos maybe aren't available anymore. So I came down to like a list of maybe like 5 or 6 different blends that we could possibly use. And we partnered with Oliva to make this cigar. So it is a Habano wrapper and Habano binder with Nicaraguan fillers.
Yeah.
But the goal was to kind of have a straight medium cigar.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm smoking right now. I have been kind of going back to more mild to medium and not as much full body stuff. And again, seeing the business part, and we have a lot of our best selling cigars are dark, like Black Market and Magic Toast and Double Broadleaf. So we kind of wanted to bring it back down to an area that we think that we could be more successful in, and working with Oliva to kind of recreate that. So, like, seeing your flavor notes of, like, kind of like this earthy honey, like a little bit of sweetness
Yeah.
to it, but
Yeah.
like almost like a baking spice and stuff like that. Like, that is what I get from the brand.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm like happy to hear that someone else kind of has the same thought process as me.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's not always like my brother will say some crazy flavor notes sometimes, and I wasn't like, too optimistic when he said I'm getting honey. I was just kind of thrown off guard, but even more so when I related, I can smoke to myself and I got the same notes. That was something for sure.
right. So, it's a brand that, is really just kind of a throwback to the past, and of what Alec Bradley was and where it was going, and kind of like now where we are. It was a kind of like an end to, the 20 plus years of it being a family owned company, and now the marking of, the next
Yeah.
journey of Alec Bradley. So the reason, kind of to relate back to safekeepings, is that the blend book, I said that the blend book was kept in the safe for
It was
safekeeping,
safekeepings. Yeah. Yeah.
and to be released later. Yeah.
So what else is cooking up in the secret recipe book that, if there's anything you guys have that is on the verge of a release that you want to drop soon and you can
Yeah.
talk about?
Yeah, so obviously we're in Canada, so things do unfortunately cut to Canada a little bit later in terms of releases. So we do have some things that have already hit the market, which talking with some of my colleagues here, we plan on bringing to the market here in Canada, which is a brand called Chunk. So
Yes.
kind of a short or a short cigar, big ring gauge brand for us. So 4x60, I think 4x80, and then I think we have another size that I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what it is, but you
Yeah,
get
there's
the
a
idea.
wide variation, different similar concept, that short stout type, cigar with
Yeah,
little different sizes available.
exactly. So we do have a Maduro and then we have a Connecticut Shade version. So I think those are two brands that we do plan on coming to Canada with.
Nice.
And then something that will be releasing any day now in the States is called Do Not Disturb,
Oh
which
wow.
is Ecuadorian Connecticut that is made with a friend of mine. His name is Hostos. He has a factory in the Dominican called La Isla.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah, yeah,
so
absolutely.
he's made
Yeah.
some cigars for probably most famously Warped,
Yeah.
and then a few other kind of smaller brands. And so this is the first cigar that we're releasing with him, and just a very, very super flavorful Connecticut. Definitely is not just like some sort of air powder that people think of with Connecticut. So
Yeah.
that's kind of been my go-to morning cigar.
Yeah.
And then the other one is so we have the Kintsugi, and
Yeah.
then this is the Kintsugi Wabi Sabi. This
Yeah.
is a limited edition cigar that we're making at AJ Fernandez. This was just announced about a week ago and is shipping probably in the next week. So this is gonna be kind of like a ramped up, stronger Kintsugi. Definitely kind of starts off a bit peppery and then kind of cools down after that. But so far, for the people that have tried it, it's been getting some pretty good praise.
Yeah, and one of the major advantages I feel like with the Alec Bradley brand, you guys have access to work with different factories depending on what kind of, blend you want to approach. So talking about Ernesto with the gatekeeper and safekeepings, and now you guys have like, your friend in the Dominican, you
Mhm.
work with AJ and all that stuff. You guys could really kind of, tailor, narrow down in terms of, how you want to approach a new blend.
Yeah,
All that.
absolutely. We work with, I think if we were to add them all up, probably about six, maybe 6 or 7 different factories. So, Placencia kind of being our home for a really long time and making Black Market and American Classic and Sungrown,
Yeah.
tons of brands for us. And then we, are especially even closer with a factory called Rice's Cubanas
Yeah.
in Honduras, who makes Prensado and Tempest and Magic Toast. So definitely like a split house, and then expanding now to La Isla, Oliva, AJ, another factory owned by a guy named Jesus Fuego who makes our Project 40s for us. So my father's idea of never owning his own factory, even though there was times that we've gotten very close to owning a factory, was that you're never, if there's ever an issue with the factory with your cigars, that there's always someone to complain to. So instead of you being the one that has to own it and figure it out, if you get a bad shipment, it's not
Yeah.
something that you have to eat, it's something that they have to eat. You tell them that it's bad, and it's for them to.
That probably frees up more flexibility to focus on, approaching the newer stuff or maintaining production and, keeping the numbers consistent for your inventory and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that was key, because once you own a factory, I mean, if there's a problem, and we're not physically down there all the time. We never lived in Nicaragua nor Honduras. We want to make sure that we have people down there that we can trust, and being with the Placencias and with Rice's Cubanas for so long, like, these are people that we trust to make our cigars, and we have full faith in them, and we know if things go wrong, that they'll take care of us.
Absolutely. Now, looking at 2025, the Alec Bradley portfolio is something for everyone, whether you want something mild, medium, full body. And post STG acquisition, you guys have this kind of newer market reach and expansion in Canada, just focusing on what, we're dealing with here. How have you guys sort of navigated that? How has your responsibility evolved before the acquisition, post acquisition? You can go into that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's great is that my role has not really changed almost at all. So, I do have an official title, I guess, which is different. Before, people would ask my title, and I'm like, oh, my name is Bradley. So,
Bradley, yeah.
that's as much of a title as I need. where now my official title is brand ambassador.
Sure.
But I also get to work on all the new cigars that we're releasing, the packaging, the marketing, the blend, and then traveling to come do events, obviously,
Yeah.
to support the brand and everything. But the amount of resources that STG has been able to provide for the brand, and obviously they want to make sure that their investment is successful. So the
Yeah.
amount of support that we've had, obviously from the Canadian level to the US to Europe has been, big. So it's just up to me to make sure that I don't screw anything up. And that, I do everything I'm kind of told to do, and just make sure that, I'm owning up to my part of the deal, which is, being the face of the brand and making
Yeah.
sure that I'm able to support it.
And smoking cigars with us and traveling north of the border and meeting everyone and all the good stuff. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
sounds like an extremely fun job to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it has its stresses. I'm not taking anything
No,
away from the responsibility, but it has pros and cons for sure.
for sure. And
Yeah.
I complain.
Yeah.
I'm human. I complain about my
Yeah.
job all the time, but I also know how fortunate I am, and I think I have the greatest job in the world. I
For
get
sure.
to, come here with you guys and hang out and smoke cigars with you guys and your customers, and
Yeah.
I know that your customers like my brand, and that's all I can ask for is that I'm going to places that people enjoy what we do. And, my job is to just get people to, at least if they don't smoke Alec Bradley, to at least try it. And then for the people that do smoke it, just to say thank you for their support for
Absolutely.
so many years. So
Yeah.
I definitely know I have the best job in the entire world. I'm the luckiest person in the entire world,
Yes.
but I will still continue to complain about things when I want to. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, just from a retailer standpoint, we've always carried at minimum, I mean, 20 lines of Alec Bradley, and just kind of, selling it for over 10 years. I've kind of drilled into my brain all the different blends and the stories, like Magic Toast, how that name came to be. I've seen a clip of your dad talk about it, and
Yeah.
some people think it's like toast, like, like the drink related toast, or sorry, like
Yeah.
they think it's bread.
Correct.
Bread, and the correct one is the drink related
Yeah.
one, right?
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think if you had to compare the safekeeping to a blend that you've enjoyed previously
Mm,
in the lineup, what do you think it's most similar to?
okay. Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think it is most similar. I think it probably would say the lineage. I
Lineage.
think it's, yeah, kind of got that like straight medium, like a little bit of roastiness to it, where it's like it's not strong, it's not mild, it's like in that dead medium area,
Yeah.
but it's not like too peppery or anything like that. That's what I used to smoke a ton of like in college. That was like my kind of like entry into the cigar industry, was like I fell in love with lineage.
Yeah.
So kind of like, and I hadn't thought about it until you asked the question. Like it kind of gives me like a
Yeah.
throwback to lineage a little bit.
Yeah, and the lineage, that name, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just another family-oriented, related type brand name, kind of
Mhm.
reflecting on like the quality, or like kind of what the image of the brand is all about.
Yeah, not just the image, but it like actually reflected to like almost a specific time, which was it was made for when me, my brother, dad, and grandfather could all smoke together. So since I'm the younger of the two, Alec is 3 years older, kind of it was
Wow,
like after I turned 18, so kind of for my birthday in a way, it was made for the fact that all of us could smoke together and enjoy cigars together.
that's beautiful. Well,
Yeah,
that's another information piece I can add on to the selling point of it all.
absolutely.
And with the exciting launch of safekeeping, I mean, this is gonna be wild for the remainder of the summer. We're gonna do a buy four, get one free, and we're gonna do it as long as we could. I know we have the event going on, but it's gonna be available both locations online as well. What you buy kind of four cigars, you get five, essentially. That's what's going on. So with the exciting launch of safekeepings, we can we're gonna expect a lot of, great, crazy feedback from customers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when this stuff happens, people ask, what can we expect next from Alec Bradley, the next launch? And all this stuff is stuff that I kind of, I pass on to our distribution, and they probably ask, somebody else. And
Yeah.
but like, well, what do you have to say to something in that situation?
Like
In terms of like yeah,
what's
like
next?
what's next? What's coming? I know you mentioned the chunk actually. Now
Yeah,
I think about
yeah.
it, right?
We talked about chunk, and then we talked about, do not disturb and Sugi.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, you're going to see a lot of our kind of same limited editions that we come out with every single, year around the same time. but we'll probably be expanding on some current lines. We'll be coming out with brand new cigars. So at the end of the day, you're just going to keep seeing more and more new stuff from Alec Bradley, stuff that I think is exciting. And it's just always going to be unique and different always try and come at a value standpoint as well.
Do you have a favorite cigar by any chance? Just out of, there's so many to choose from.
Yeah.
I thought about this long and hard before, like, this recording, but I want to hear what your opinion is.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite in totality, maybe not, I'm not saying it's the best cigar in the world, but the one that I smoke the most, that I love the most is the Kintsugi.
Yeah.
It was kind of, in my profile of mild to medium, something I know I can smoke every single day. We make it in a Corona Gorda, a 46 by 6, which is my favorite cigar size of all time. And then, and not to bring up plain, Canadian plain packaging, unfortunate thing. But it's in terms of the band and the packaging, the box that we created,
Oh, they're absolutely beautiful, man.
it took a long time for us to make. And I just think it's a beautiful packaging, beautiful box and band. And I just think it's like the hardest work that we've put in. And it's just something that I'll love forever.
I mean, to come up with an angle of, like that broken jewelry that, or like what
Pottery.
from like a Japanese inspired
Yeah, so
theme,
kintsugi is means it's taking broken pottery and piecing
putting
it
it,
back with gold lacquer.
yeah,
So if you have like a bowl or a plate and then the gold cracks kind of come through, so it kind of means that there's beauty in the imperfections. And that's what kind of cigars are, is
yeah,
it's an imperfect product. It's
yeah,
all made by hand, so it's just one of those things that it's kind of perfectly imperfect. Like
yes,
the goal is to be perfect, but by proxy, like it just can't be, because
yeah,
we are humans. We make cigars from hand,
yeah.
and so no cigar is the same, and perfection is not possible, but we can get close to it.
And how would the kintsugi differ from the newer wabi sabi?
So the original kintsugi is gonna be a bit more mild to medium,
Yeah,
less strength, and pepper, where the wabi sabi is probably more of a straight medium,
yeah,
but starts off pretty peppery and then it calms down a little bit and then it's like just more strong than anything. So
nice.
yeah.
Nice. So in terms of pairings, I know you guys used to have this thing with your brother Alec. I used to enjoy watching this
Yeah.
Whiskey Wednesdays.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
remember.
is that still a thing going on or not anymore?
No, that's not a thing. We hired a guy to do, video and photography for us, and so he was like, "Here's all the stuff I need. I need lights, and I need this and
Yeah,
that, and he's gonna do all of our editing, and not just for the Whiskey Wednesday, but for all of Alec Bradley. This was
yeah,
years ago,
yeah.
and
I remember. Yeah,
after about a lot of money put into equipment, about 8 months later, he was like, "Yeah, I got a better job offer somewhere else," and then after that, we just kind of gave up. So
yeah. Just the whole thing. It's kind
yeah.
of funny because I remember, I used to watch. There was like always a disagreement of some sort. It's very relatable, my brother and I, in terms of on a retail level. Like, hey, this line bringing in how many boxes, but like you don't necessarily agree on the numbers or the blend and the notes and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And you guys are much of the same way. So, from brother to brother standpoint, I think it's one of the more beautiful things I appreciate about the brand. For me,
Yeah.
just talking about from my personal viewpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's as you understand, it's the part of the family business.
Yeah.
You love and you hate each other, and you disagree, and you probably give him a harder time than you give someone else that you work with.
Yeah.
But he's your brother, you love him, and I love mine too. But I also hate him, and I'm sure you hate yours too. So it goes along with it.
He didn't want to come with you all the way to Canada, I guess. The weather was too nice down in Florida.
It's not too nice. It's about
Yeah.
I think I was leaving. I think it's about 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So what is that out here? Is that 35, right? So that was
Yeah.
a no-go. And he's got the two boys now. He's got a 3-year-old and
Oh,
a
wow.
3-month-old. So I don't think he's allowed to leave if he wants to. And that's my job to do, and not his, luckily. So it's good.
Yeah. All right, Bradley, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're a very busy guy, but we've been going on for about 40 minutes, give or take. But I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time up to come all the way to Canada, spend time with our friends and customers, share the launch of the safekeepings, which, by the way, 4+1, don't forget, available online, both locations. And it's just been an absolute honor to get to know more about your brand, yourself. and just everything else that Alec Bradley stands for. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I want to thank you guys. It's always an honor to come up here to Canada, see how much support that we get from everyone. So I want to thank you and your family. It's good to get to know you guys,
Yeah,
and also that, we're both a bit younger and that we have a lot of, growth to have and success to have together. And I want to thank you, your family, for supporting Alec Bradley for so long. So
pleasure is
I
ours.
really, really appreciate it,
Pleasure is
guys.
ours. Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you.